Hi, welcome to Anything is Possible. My name is Tamara and I live at Lake Chapala in Jalisco, Mexico. Today I am going to talk about noise. And ironically, I had to film today in my kitchen because it's really noisy. My next door neighbors decided they were going to get their tinaco cleaned out this morning, and my dogs were barking like crazy at the guys on their roof. So I've got them inside and everything is quiet now, but you know, this is the way it is here, and it's not just my situation. When people move here, they often comment and complain, I have to say, about the level of noise in Mexico. And I have to say it's noisy here. I mean, if you lived in a large city, for instance, you know, Los Angeles or New York or whatever, I mean, there are a lot of noises and horns, cars honking their horns and traffic noises and that sort of thing. But Mexico kind of takes it to a different level, or at least in a different direction. So I was going to go over some of the noises here and some of the sounds that people find disturbing, and give you a recording of what it sounds like here of various different sounds. And it's taken me a while to accumulate all of these, but quite honestly, I hear pretty much all of these at least once a day, every day on my street. And it doesn't matter if it's Sunday or a holiday. These are sounds that are very common here. So I have to say, overall, the backdrop to everything is pretty much constant dogs barking and a lot of times roosters crowing. And I think a lot of people, you know, they kind of would nod their heads and yeah, that's pretty much the backdrop to everything in Mexico is dogs barking and roosters crowing. There's dogs roaming free. There's dogs on roofs. There's dogs in people's yards, and they bark. And roosters also, they roaming free and in people's vacant lots or whatever where they have their chickens and roosters. And so that's one thing that is kind of, you get used to just hearing that all the time. I have a neighbor that bought her house sight unseen, and she had lived in Mexico before, and she just decided she knew what the sounds were and wasn't concerned about it. Well, it turns out next door to her is this lot full of dead cars, and the guy comes and works on the cars now and then, but he has 3 dogs living there, and they sleep most of the day. It's pretty quiet, so it's hard for her to make a point that the dogs bark a lot, apparently, all night long. Really isn't a whole lot you can do. You can talk to the owner, who probably isn't going to do anything because he has the dogs there for security reasons. And there may be noise ordinance, and they probably are, but you know, they're certainly not enforced because dogs barking are so omnipresent here that nobody's going to respond to a complaint about barking dogs. Mexicans party a lot. And so you want to look and see, if you're looking for a place to live, check on Google Maps, type in event center. My house backs up to 3 actually event centers. 2 are really active. One is an indigenous center that has events, and a lot of it is, you know, pretty heavy drumming and that sort of thing. And then another is an event center that has weddings and quinceañería parties and you name it, whatever anybody wants to rent the center for and have a party. So it tends to have a lot of music, a lot of drums. It starts often at like mid-afternoon, I would say maybe 3 in the afternoon, and it goes, often well beyond midnight. Parties tend to kind of end around 2 a.m. in Mexico. So by 2 a.m. things are pretty quiet. has, often really imaginative, fun bands playing. And so I just go out in the backyard and dance. And if it bothers me enough, I can close the windows on that side of the house and put some music on, and it really does not bother me. A lot of people, they really complain about, oh, this party's going on forever. Well, yeah, it does. And this is Mexico, and this is how they live, and you're not going to change it. So if that kind of thing bothers you and you think you're not going to be able to sleep through loud parties, don't live and don't buy a house or rent a house near an event center. Now, the third source of noise is actually the Catholic Church. And I hate to say this, but they are very noisy. And they have a lot of celebrations of various virgins and patron saints. And so every single town has their own patron saint. For 9 days, they celebrate the patron saint of that town. So Ajijic has a patron saint. Chapala has a patron saint. San Antonio has a, Rivera's has one. San Juan Cotala has one. Every single town has their patron saint, and it's 9 days that they have processions through the streets with marching bands, and at the end, usually there's at least one guy shooting off what's known as cohetes. And cohetes are basically firecrackers, and they're all on a long stick, and on top of the stick is mounted this firecracker that shoots up in the air and bang, blows up. And this is all part of celebrations that the Catholics do. I have to say in San Antonio that they shoot off far less cohetes, I would say, than when I lived in Rivera. So that sort of thing disturbs you, which, I have to say, of all the noises here, my animals, some of them are not disturbed at all by the cohetes, but I had one of my little terrier dogs, he barks like crazy and just comes unglued. And the problem is it's very unpredictable when they're going to shoot these off. And it's random, and it's right in front of your house. It's not like confined to around the church. They march up and down the streets, 2 or 3 block radius of any Catholic church. You're going to have these processions.
la imagen más pequeñita de la Virgen.
What I want to say is that the noise generally is associated with Catholic celebrations. Okay, other churches don't do it, and national holidays, they don't do it. The Catholic Church is the one that provides all of the finances for the Coettes, the people that shoot the Coettes and march along and have these processions, and put up the banners across the streets. It's all financed by the Catholic Church. So you don't have to be afraid. We had a big election year this year, a huge election, and I thought, oh boy, when they announce the winners, or it's inauguration day, look out, it's going to be really noisy, completely silent. So it's not that, and it's not like things like Independence Day or Cinco de Mayo or anything like that. It's just, those are pretty quiet holidays. I mean, people have the day off and they have their usual parties and drink beer and stuff, but not to a large extent like with the Catholic holiday. If you really don't like this kind of thing, I have to say that, look on Google Maps and type in Catholic Church, and it'll tell you where they are, and you can kind of draw a radius around that, and you will know that that area is going to have a higher noise level on occasion than others. And I have to say, like the month of December is really big. They have, actually La Posada was very quiet. Maybe other towns it's not, but the Posada is the procession reenactment of Jesus and Mary, her trying to find a place to give birth. And every night for, I think it was about 5 nights, they had a procession through different streets in town. That's how they do it in San Antonio, Tlacopan. And they walk. And I was prepared. I had my dogs inside, the windows closed, and because I knew they were coming right by my house and around the corner where I live. And turns out, I heard them going by, and all it was children singing. And I thought, oh, well, that's kind of nice. I'm always good for music, but having children singing was actually very lovely, and not one Coette. So I was very grateful to that. But then immediately after that, I believe it was, they had the celebration of the Virgin of Guadalupe, which is a huge deal here. People, they pray to the Virgin of Guadalupe. She is just considered an incredibly powerful, holy person here. And they had many days of marching processions through the street, lots of Coettes, and at the last day there were fireworks shooting off. And of course that triggers a bunch of dogs barking. So, it's all just very noisy. And of course, then there's just the usual street noises. But street noises here also take it to another level. Because I have to say, Mexicans are really, they have a lot of initiative when it comes to finding a way to make some income. A lot of people, they don't have good jobs, or they don't have any jobs. And there are some beggars that come by, but by and large, people try and do something to make a little money. And so there's people taking trucks of boxes of produce that drive down the streets, and they have big loudspeaker on the top of the car, and they holler the whole way and make it sound really exciting. They've got produce.
Llegó la rica fresa, de la vuelta a la fresa, 3 botes con
Then, during the corn harvest, it's elote, which is corn on the cob, and or corn. And so there's trucks that come driving down the street with a big loudspeaker announcing that they've got elote. Right now is legumes are being harvested. And so actually I didn't know for sure, but I got a piece of this plant that fell off one of the trucks. They were driving around like crazy a couple of weeks ago, just every single day, these trucks loaded with bushels of this, bunches of green plant material. And I said, people would run up to the truck and buy this stuff. So I grabbed a piece and I used Google Lens and found out it's actually garbanzo bean plants. The pods, you shell them like peas, and inside are fresh garbanzos. They're green. And I talked to my gardener that I used to have, ran into him. He went out to the truck and grabbed some of this, and he goes, I'm going to have my wife make this. And it was like, he says, it's delicious. So it's really kind of a thing.
Acérquese usted, señor, me quiere guasana, 20 kilos. Disfrute con su familia de unas ricas y sabrosas guasanas cocidas. ¿Quiere guasana? Sí, mire, muy buena y fresca que viene la guasana recién cortadita a 20 pesos el kilo. La puede usted asar, la puede usted cocinar, mire, muy buena que está la guasana. Acérquese, sí, mire, a 20 pesos.
But that's, people make money doing that. And then there's ice cream trucks or ice cream cars.
Y de dulce, están para chuparse los dedos. ¿A poco no se le antojaron ya? Le aseguramos le gustarán, pues los hacemos con todas las ganas y cariño. Venga, acérquese, le atendemos rápido y con mucho gusto. ¡Tamales, tamales! ¡Llegaron los tamales!
Oh, the gas trucks go by, and they all have their own little sound, so you know which company it is that's coming by. Nobody has, piped in gas here. It's all propane. So you either have a gas cylinder, which is small, and they just exchange the cylinder when you run out of gas. Or like I do, I have a big tank up on my roof, and you can go out and grab one of these guys that has the big tanker truck, and you'll hear them coming, and you can stop them, and they will come and they'll fill up your tank on your roof. But they're all quite loud. There's guys that have a pickup truck, and they go around and they collect metal recycling. So they announce it very loudly on the speaker what they'll take, but people give them their bed mattresses, stoves, refrigerators, broken appliances of any sort. I had some fence material, and I stopped the guy one day, and he hauled off my spare fencing that I had. They're happy to take any kind of metal, and it's really very convenient. I mean, I never had that in the United States. People had dead washers and dryers and stuff sitting out, rusting away for ages because, if you just have a regular car, there isn't really any way to get it to the recycling center. So this is very convenient. You just run out and the guy loads it up into his truck and carts it away, and he gets the money because it's recycled. And it's closing, I'd like to say that, there are ways to deal with it. And one is just get used to it. I mean, social media Facebook pages around here and stuff. I mean, constantly people move in and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, what is all these explosions? Or this band has been playing, you know, and it's after midnight and I want to get some sleep. And it's like, get used to it. It happens here. Even if you aren't near an event center, people have quinceañerías in their yards, and it'll be just right there, and they'll be partying until very late. So the other thing, like I say, with the bands that I can hear from the event centers, I go out in the backyard and I dance for a while, and it's kind of fun. I wasn't invited to their party, but I can still enjoy the music and have fun in my yard. So also, you can get earplugs and close the doors and windows, put on a loud movie or some music, and just cope with it. My animals, I have CBD oil, which is readily available from any vet, and often just any store. They'll have CBD oil available that you can buy. And I just put it on one of their little treats and kind of soaks in, and a couple of drops of that, and it really calms them down. And then for my terrier, I actually got a little headset that just muffles the sound on his ears. Another thing is, make a note on your phone, you know, when something happens, a patron saint holiday, you go, I live in a town, this is patron saint day, and it goes for 9 days. So you know it's going to happen again next year. And then you can pretty much guarantee December is going to be pretty noisy. It's noisy all the way through New Year's. New Year's here was actually not that noisy because, again, it's not a religious holiday, but all of December, there's a lot of noise. So, you know, it doesn't help to complain, so just don't. It's not going to change. So what has to change is you, okay? You have to change your attitude about noise, because you can either sit and complain and hate it and go, it's driving me crazy, or you can just say, oh, well, you know, come up with a way to cope with it or get away for a while. People want to live in gated communities here because they think it's going to be quieter, and to some extent it is. You're not going to get people driving trucks by probably for metal recycling or, you know, selling produce, corn and garbanzo beans or whatever, because they don't let them through the front gate. But living up on the hills, you know, the way that the geography is, the lake is at the low point, and then the hills slope up from there. So if you're up on the top of the hill, all that noise comes right up. So when I'm here down in the flatlands, you know, a lot of times I don't hear a lot of the noise down in town or in Ahihi or whatever. But boy, the people up in the hills, in these fancy gated communities, they're like, boy, the people were really partying in Ahihi tonight. You know, in the wilds away from Ishluacan, there's a lot of beautiful country out there, just lovely horse pastures and agricultural areas. And it would be pretty quiet out there, but remote. And so you're not going to have a lot of people that are going to want to drive out to see you, or, you know, neighbors to take care of your cat when you're away or whatever. You have to go shopping. You have to get in the car and drive for 10 minutes. I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanted to announce I'm starting a new channel. There seems to be a lot of interest in gardening here amongst my friends. People have a lot of problems, and so and they want to know what plants work here and what don't. And so I am starting a channel called Almost Paradise Gardens, and I'm calling it Almost Paradise because we have bugs here. It's all about gardening in the semi-tropics. And so there's bugs, there's weeds, there's various diseases, when to prune, what to plant, what to take into consideration in this particular climate, which is tricky. I had to, it was a whole learning process for me, and I'm learning all the time. I have pots and pots of dead plants here that didn't make it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you're thinking of moving here, just gear up for a noisy environment. Do your research, visit a place all times of day before you rent or buy, especially at night, especially after dark. I would say if you go at 10 at night and it's quiet on a weekend, Friday or Saturday, it's probably going to be okay. But Fridays and Saturdays are the real noisy nights when people party and drink beer and have bonfires in the streets. Yeah, that's another thing. It's like, the streets are cobblestone here, so it's not uncommon for people to build fires and have a bonfire at the end of the block and sit around and drink beer and party at night. It's not an uncommon thing at all. So get used to it. Get over it. Get with the program. Enjoy the culture and smile and be happy. It's just the way it is here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.